All right. Hi, I'm Dr. Autumn here at Bakersfield College with Jeff Coffin. Jeff, how you doing?
Pretty good. How you doing?
I'm doing well.
All right.
Why don't you go ahead and kind of introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your work, and then we'll just have a free-flowing chat for about 10, 15 minutes.
Okay. I'm a saxophonist. I'm an educator. I'm a composer. I'm an author. Do a lot of different creative things. I tour with Dave Matthews Band. I teach at Vanderbilt University. I have my own record label called Ear Up Records. I've got 19 or 20, I can't remember which, solo records out. And put out a children's book a year ago, and I've got a few more that are getting ready to do it. So, you know, just kind of living a creative life and trying to get through every day.
Yeah, absolutely. You spoke with students in our last session, and I was super inspired by your level of productivity, and like you talked about it, like not wasting any time, basically, right? That time is precious and stuff. I wonder, with all of your many interests and things, specifically with music right now, is there a sound or a very particular thing that's really exciting you these days with making music? Like, is there something that you can draw out of? I know you do so many projects, but is there something that's really sort of exciting you these days that's maybe different than the past, or something that pops into your mind? Musical, stylistic, whatever comes to mind.
Yeah, well, sort of my focus a lot of times is in composition. I mean, I've played a lot of solos. I mean, how many more solos do I need to play? You know, I love it, but my focus has really been in composition. So it's interesting for me to sort of witness the way my composition changes over time, and you know, different sort of corners I'll put myself into, and you know, and I mean, I really love acoustic music, but I also use a lot of pedals on my horns. So kind of a balancing of those things. Recently, I've changed my sound a little bit on the saxophone, and that's been really inspiring to me. And I'm still working through that change also, and trying to understand it.
What is that change? What specifically? What change are you talking about?
Going to a little bit of a darker sound. You know, a sound that has a little bit more of a pear shape at the bottom. You know.
And is that a gear? Is that gear related and sort of technique
related? Yeah, it's
related?
more gear related than anything.
Okay.
But I've been hearing a darker sound for a while. I just haven't been able to get to it until now.
Interesting.
And but I've been working on it and working towards it for a while, actually. And so that makes me want to practice more also, and work on things, and so yeah, I'm kind of into, I wouldn't say minimalist stuff, but kind of. I'm not really looking for a lot of density in music right now.
Interesting.
And my record that just came out, it's called Between Dreaming and Joy, and there are a lot of players on there, but there's only a few players per tune, you know, and any density that's on there is coming from the multiple instruments that I'm playing. So I play all the saxophones, all four of the saxophones, soprano, alto, bari, and tenor. I play clarinet and bass clarinet. I play bass flute, C flute, and piccolo. And there's some different whistles on there. I'm playing percussion. I'm doing some vocalization. There's no words, but vocalization. Shakers and different pieces of metal and whatnot. Bottles, like Coke bottles, filled up with different levels
to get a different
water,
pitch. Yeah.
Get a different pitch. The Hungarian Teragato, which is a instrument that I got in 2020, I guess it was. So there's a lot of different timbres, but nothing is really. It's not like there's a wall of guitars or anything, you know.
Yeah.
So
you're still, like, it sounds like you're exploring timbre, But in terms of like that doesn't have to equal filling space per se. Is that kind of what you're getting at in a way?
Yeah.
Like maximalism is not just because there's a lot of sound doesn't mean it's a maximalist situation.
Right. Yeah, I'm trying not to fill all the sonic space. I'm trying to make the open space a part of the composition. You know, like I was talking to some students yesterday and saying, you have to play silence like it's part of your solo.
Yeah.
You know, like the notes are part of your solo, the production of notes are part of your solo, but make the production of silence part of your solo also.
Part of your statement.
You know,
I feel like Miles and Wayne Shorter come to mind as some of the
sure.
masters of that use, right? In a way.
Absolutely.
Maybe this connects to what you're talking about, but I've found it interesting for myself as a musician, and then when I talk to friends, creative friends of all types, I wonder if this interest right now in a darker sound or this idea of maybe more minimal composition or something like this, can you tie it to the lockdown in a way? Does it feel like some of these themes emerged in that moment of forced solitude? Is there a connection there?
Sure, I think so. I did a record called Songs of Solitude at the very beginning.
Oh, wow.
And it was just me exploring the soprano in particular, sort of in almost a Middle Eastern modality. Mm. And I would write out a bass line and I would play over it. Then I had the great Victor Krauss,
amazing,
you know, play the bass lines.
Yeah.
And it was fantastic, you know, and so it's me and him it's 3 tunes, but they're all, you know, 10 or 12 minutes long. And my wife played harmonium on one tune, and then a drummer named Jordan Perlson played a hajira, which is a skin-headed drum, hand drum on one of the other tunes. But it's very open, very spacious. And then, excuse me, during the lockdown too, Victor, Jordan, and myself started a trio, and we recorded a record, did all video for it also at Victor's studio because we had isolation in there, and that'll be out sometime next year. But that's really open also. I mean, there's some density to it, but it's just the 3 of us.
Yeah,
you know.
Yeah.
And so I think I've been exploring some of that. And some free jazz stuff. I'm just exploring. I've got a bunch of kind of global music stuff I've done also.
Yeah. I
took a Peruvian folk song and kind of morphed it into this whole other thing, and some Afrobeat stuff I was doing, and some stuff with a kalimba also, and just, you know, lots of different kinds of things.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you know, I think some of it probably came from having to kind of create on our own during the pandemic, but I was also sending stuff to people.
Yeah,
and
to collaborate in like
virtual
ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But I think that coming out of, I guess you would say, a traumatic event like that,
sure,
it changes things. It changes perspectives. Like I was talking about in the class, how it's usually like little rocks in the pond. This was a big rock. This changed the landscape of everything.
You did a drawing out there that was sort of this beautiful piece of art you cobbled together in 30 seconds, which I was blown away by and really struck by emotionally. These curvy lines, right, where you kind of put these dots, and the dots, the big dot was being born, the big dot at the end is death, and then there were events, small, big, and I think you're right. This has been a big event, and it seems to have really affected creative people in very interesting ways. I'm kind of struck by how it seems to have distilled things
that's a great word
for me personally, and also people I've talked to, where I heard like the great drummer Questlove say he sort of got in touch again with his 8-year-old self, right?
Yeah.
Meaning the kid who was at the record player, like just in awe. And he kind of had this quote. He's like, I just want to be 8 years old. Like that's what I want to be now that he's 50 or whatever he was. Yeah. But I think it conjured up kind of an interesting, you're right, it's like a global traumatic event that sort of shocks a person, especially a creative person, to like sort of take stock possibly and sort of think about like what it is we might do. And I'm really also struck by your concept of minimalism. Like I've always felt as a musician, there are these heroes I've looked up to, these sounds that I adore and this concepts I adore. But as I've grown as a musician, like then you make a recording of yourself and you kind of can listen back, and musicians are famously tough on themselves sometimes, right? So you're like, oh, that's the record I made when I was 21.
Right.
I don't play like that anymore.
Yeah.
I don't want to play like that anymore.
Yeah.
And I might have valued space when I was 21, but I wasn't making space when I was 21. But I've noticed, at least for myself and kind of in what you're saying, that like possibly one outcome of this stuff, for some at least, is like more of an alignment with values and like execution or something, if that makes sense. Like
it does.
I don't know if you can relate to that. Like I've always thought of that. Like we've got concepts as creative people, and then we've got what we actually make. And having those things come together feels like a goal, right? Like
sure.
to have those things align.
Absolutely. Well, I think with the pandemic too, I think one of the things that it forced us as creative people to do was figure out how to create. Because we're so used to creating with each other.
Yeah.
You know, and so suddenly when we were told, well, you can't do that right now.
Yeah.
Then it's like, okay, well, what do we do?
Yeah.
You know, and for some people, I think that it was a real existential dilemma. And I mean, for me, I kind of thrived in it. You know, I get to hang out with my wife for 2 years, almost 2 years, and take lots of walks and cook together and hang out. And it was beautiful, you know. And now I'm just exhausted again. You know, and through every fault of my own. Because when something comes up and I want to do it, I say yes to it.
Yeah.
And so there's part of me that misses a little bit of that. So I think what I need to do is I need to go from this extreme that I'm at now and the extreme that I was at then, and kind of balance in the middle a little bit more.
Yeah.
And learn how to say no to certain things. But when good opportunities come up, I'm just like, yeah, but I really want to do.
Absolutely. Well, you are so prolific and stuff. I'll just give you a couple other little thoughts and then we'll wrap it up. I wonder what comes to mind when you think of sort of watermark records or musicians. Whatever. I don't want to limit it to a particular thing, but just what comes to mind for you as maybe some watermark, let's just say albums or musicians or eras of musicians, whether that's for you now or has followed you your whole life. What are some artists that come to mind for you?
Well, there's a lot.
Sure.
You know, I've had goosebumps with a lot of music, and I listen to a lot of different kinds of music. I've always loved vocalists. Aretha and Nat Cole was a real favorite for me also. It still is. Billie Holiday. Ornette Coleman. Cannonball Adderley. Coltrane, of course. Sonny Rollins and Wayne Shorter and Joe Henderson. There's an African singer named Umu Sangare, who's from Mali, who's definitely one of my favorites. She's known as the songbird of Mali.
Oh, wow.
And she's absolutely incredible. And Ali Farquhar Touré also is another one.
Yep.
Toumani Diabate. Great friend of mine in Rio, Carlos Malta, has a group called Pife Mudano. It's a fife and drum band out of Brazil, and it's just awesome and amazing and really inspiring. But, you know, influence-wise, and you know, I mean, there are specific records for those people, but it's really, it's the spirit that I'm looking for.
Yeah.
You know, so for me, like, Bob Dylan is the same as Ornette, is the same as Miles. I mean, Miles is probably my favorite of everyone. Is the same as Umu, is the same as this, as that. You know, it's so the
goosebumps come through those people, in a sense.
Yeah, Betty LaVette's another one also. This record of hers called "Got My Own Hell to Raise" is just mind blowing.
Is Betty LaVette a vocalist? Okay.
Yeah,
well, I don't know her work. Okay.
And so, you know, there's a lot of different music that really does it for me.
Yeah.
And I'm always searching stuff out. That's what I love about streaming also, is that I'm really searching a lot of things out all the time. And just kind of grabbing little bits and pieces of it. I don't always have to listen to the whole thing to sort of get the essence of what's going on.
Yep.
And I've been checking out a lot of Enrico Rava lately, who's an Italian trumpet player. He's, I think, 83. And he just put out a duo record with the great Fred Hurst, the pianist.
Oh, wow.
And Charles Lloyd is another favorite for me, 84 years old and sounds like he's 25.
He just put out 3 records, like a trilogy. He's
crazy.
Over the top.
Yeah, it's unbelievable, man.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I'm really interested in seeing people's trajectory like that.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Wayne Shorter is another one, and
the long career.
Yeah,
right?
mm-hmm,
Yeah.
You know, Wayne's not playing anymore, neither is Sonny Rollins, but they're still around and they're still active as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so I'm kind of fascinated by all that because they're still influencing me, just, you know, in who they are.
I like what you're saying about like the essence of someone, that it doesn't have to necessarily come down to which record, right, or whatever, or this record and the rest was trash or whatever. Yeah. Like those are fun arguments to have if you want to have them, but at the end of the day, I like what you're saying about sort of the essence of an artist and that is the thing that truly translates.
So I have, you know, like for me, like I think follow the spirit, not the style. That's
a great way to look at it.
You know, and someone like Bjork also, who's got a new record come out that's just mind-boggling. I don't know how she keeps doing it, but it's absolutely incredible.
And she's a great watermark of sort of like artist trumping genre, right? Or essence trumping anything, right? She's Bjork. The sound is Bjork. The experience is Bjork. It's not, I don't think, EDM. Or dance music.
It's something entirely different than what we've ever heard.
It's her own universe. And Wayne Shorter, I think universe is the word that comes to mind with some of these folks, right? Like
Joni Mitchell also, Radiohead. I mean, the list goes on. There's so much great stuff out there.
Right.
And some great new music also, you know. Corey Wong is doing some incredible stuff, and Snarky Puppy and Ghost Note and different folks. And there's a lot of, Jacob Collier is another one.
Absolutely.
You know, modern day Mozart, that guy.
Yes.
And then some, maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well,
crazy.
That's inspiring. Maybe we can wrap up real quick.
Sure.
If there's just a final maybe piece of advice that you would give to a college-age student. Often we're serving students here at Bakersfield College of all ages, right? But a vast majority of these students can be 18 to 22-ish, right? And they're getting into music, coming back from all sorts of backgrounds. I wonder if there's sort of any advice that you would give to somebody looking to pursue a creative life in music. Yeah, well, I would say surround yourself with creative people as part of it. Work on your relationships. That's the most important thing there is. And recognizing that we are in relationship 24/7, and that the most important relationship in your life is your relationship with yourself, because that's the one you're going to be around your entire life. And recognize also that the one constant in every relationship is there will be conflict. You know, and you have to figure out how to get through that. It's not even necessarily about resolving it so much as it is observing that it's there and owning it. And if someone is upset with you, for example, recognize that they're in conflict, you know, and you can have compassion for them. And it's not about you. Don't take it personally. I think that's a big thing, and it's hard to do. But, you know, don't take it personally. Work on your relationships and don't take things personally. Yeah. That's some wisdom. Thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I appreciate your time. Likewise. Thank you. All right. Okay. Bye.